Hey guys, what's up? What's up, everybody? Hello. I want to take the time to say welcome to each and every one of you guys, to all my subscribers. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching me. Thank you for commenting on the videos. Thank you for liking, and thank you so much for sharing. I really do appreciate it. For those of you who do not know, welcome to Faces of Uterine Fibroids. I am Martine Myers, the award-winning author for Faces of Uterine Fibroids. Coming in today to let you all know that we will be uploading consistently on Mondays and Fridays, 12 p.m. EST to 3 p.m. EST. I'm in New York, so I'm on Eastern Standard Time. So I wanted to be sure to let you guys know the new upload schedule. It's Mondays and Fridays, 12 p.m. EST, 3 p.m. EST. Okay? That's going to be the time frame right now, because those are the times that are actually working for us for the channel, and also for you guys as the viewers. So I do appreciate that. As you all know, this channel is specifically to help women heal. We're here to talk about women's health, primarily focused on fibroids, because that's a personal story for me. That's the reason why I share my story, to help women alleviate the pain and agony of fibroids, and to show you guys that it's quite possible that you can live, move forward, be happy, and manifest whatever it is that you want to manifest, regardless of your fibroid situation. And to give you guys strategies and solutions, inspiration and motivation for you to be a better version of yourself. So on that note, I want to talk about a topic that is very near and dear to me. And many of you guys have asked in reference to this topic as well. It has to do with fibroids and stress and fibroids, okay? Stress altogether, guys, you guys know that it takes a lot of you, okay? It takes a lot of you in many different ways. As women, we go through a lot of different stresses. As an empath, we all go through stresses, men and women, because of the fact that we're able to pick up on people's feelings. We're able to understand and feel maybe if somebody's going through something. We feel the sensation, we feel the vibes, and a lot of us are very nurturing. So all of those things do create some sort of stress factor in our lives, especially if it's not received on the other end properly, if it's misunderstood on the other end. Sometimes it could be ignored, you could be ghosted. If that creates another stress, it creates confusion. Who wants to be ignored, right? So that's another issue within itself. But I'm going to give you guys some pointers on some stress points that I would like for you to become mindful on, and you can actually assess for yourself, evaluate yourself at home, wherever you are, so that you can pretty much have an idea if these are factors in your life that have contributed to your health as a woman, and to know exactly that these particular issues do contribute to fibroids as well, to your condition as a woman in the womb, within your womb, how it could be something totally negative to you. So I want to highlight those things. So the first thing I want to get into right now is death. We're going to talk about death of a close friend, death of a loved one, death of your spouse, death of a parent. Death, in a nutshell, has a very big impact on each person. You never get used to death, because every death, you go through it differently. It leaves a different impact, right? So the thing about it is, for me, I could remember my first experience with death was when I was 11 years old. My great grandmother had passed away. I was young, so, you know, it was kind of like scary for me at first because I didn't know what to experience. You know, the being in the situation where I'm like viewing a body, you know, that was pretty moving for me. And I'm sure as a young child, you know, you probably, if you have experienced death and gone to funerals, you know, you went to viewings, you probably could understand where I'm coming from with that. And seeing people crying, sobbing, definitely leaves an impact with you. I know that it definitely left an impact with me. I was kind of confused about the whole death thing as well and stuff. And being that that was the first death that I experienced in my family, it was kind of like a weird type of situation for me. But definitely we moved forward, but I had to get accustomed to the fact that my great grandmother would not be in the household anymore. Visualizing, going through days and visualizing the spots that she would sit and eat, that she's no longer there, until it became like second nature. Like I got used to the whole thing, you know. So that was something. A major death that impacted me and my entire family was the death of my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. We were not prepared, basically. In a nutshell, nobody was prepared. So therefore, that created a lot of havoc, confusion. We were all lost, period. When the news came, and my grandmother was not ill per se, you know. She didn't have any particular issues health-wise. She just ended up having a heart attack, and then by the time she went to the hospital, she ended up having a massive heart attack, and that was the end of everything. So with that being said, that death definitely shook me. It left an impact on me. And one thing I want each and every one of you guys to understand, as women, it doesn't matter how young you are, as long as you are at the menstruation stage, you respond with your womb, okay? You receive with your womb. Everything you do is from the womb. We create from the womb. The womb has its own DNA, okay? The womb is around the uterus. It's in and outside of the uterus. That is your womb. It has its own DNA, okay? It has, you go through feelings in your womb. That's why we have this saying that says, oh my God, it's all about my gut feeling, my gut feeling. That's because you feel sensations in your gut, you know? You really feel sensations in your gut. And that is something that is very sensitive. That is something that women in general need to be mindful of. Women in general need to understand that there are a lot of things that actually happen in the womb. The womb is a creation center. That's where we give life. That's where we go through our rebirth. I mean, that's where our creativity comes from. You know, we always birthing, whether it's an idea, whether it's an actual person. Men and women, men and women come from the womb. Okay. So, I mean, whether it's a project you're working on, you're going through a thought process, it all generates originally from the womb. You may think that it generates from your brain. No, it starts from the womb, which is within that uterus area, and then the ideas will travel up, come up to you, so that you can add some more thought process. But the creation phase of everything happens in the womb. That is something that you can read on, primarily about like the power of the womb type thing, anything related to the womb, sacred women. You will learn all about that stuff. It's very interesting. But if you're not really understanding the things about the womb, you need to really start to gather information on that. Google it, because it's really important. And women, we need to really learn about the womb, respect the womb, and we need to honor our womb, and we also need to preserve our womb. It's very important, okay? So that's that. But always remember that death actually is something that creates, that's like a life event that we go through, and it creates stresses. And those type of stresses related to death, we feel it. We could feel pain in the womb. We could feel the uncomfortability in the womb, feel the lack in the womb. You feel loss in the womb. You feel confusion in the womb. Like all of that, jittering, all that stuff starts from the womb, and then it travels into other places of your body. Whatever it is that you go through, for women, it begins in the womb and it travels to other places in your body. Sometimes you get a jittering feeling, but a lot of times it starts from this area right here, which is basically around the womb area, and then it starts to jitter into other places for you to really get the feeling, the sensation of the vibration of what you're going through. Another stress factor I want to zero in on is divorce. Divorce from your spouse. Sometimes you could be a child and your parent goes through a divorce, and that becomes a stressful point for you. That creates a lot of stress, a lot of strain. That's change. Change in general is stressful for anyone. It's a readjustment, which is difficult. So that's a stress point right there that you may go through. And those type of stress points basically may create confusion, havoc. It may create some type of instability. You have to re-examine maybe for your finances and stuff. So that actually puts you in a state of worry. And when you are in a state of worry, all of those feelings respond back to the womb area, which is the uterus, and you go through these gut feelings and uncomfortabilities, uncertainties, and fears, anxiety, confusion, all that. And that's a possibility that creates a lot of health hazards, a lot of health issues. With that being said, it could contribute to fibroids or endometriosis, even adenomyosis, which is a lot worse condition than fibroids or endometriosis, okay? As we said, we talked about death of a close friend, same thing. Legal separation from spouse, okay? Legal separation from spouse, that's another stress point. You're together and all of a sudden you have to find yourself being separated, dividing your time. If there's a child in between, you find yourself having to divide your time and divide time for the child to be with one parent than with the other parent, especially if both parents are not cooperative, then that turns into stress, definite stress. I actually know somebody who's going through that at this current time, and it's difficult. It's really difficult. If the schedules are not coinciding with one another, that puts, sometimes it puts one parent in the most uncomfortable state. And in the situation that I know of, it's the woman that's in the most uncomfortable state. It's the mother, because she has a hard time going to work. She has a hard time making it to work on time because there's not always someone there to be with her child, and it tends to be very difficult. So you're always juggling, mixing, sometimes you have to end up calling out last minute. That puts you in jeopardy with your job as well. It lowers your credibility at work. It creates very difficult situations, and it also gives you a negative aura to your personal being, which has you thinking and processing and reprocessing so many different scenarios in your brain, which then turns into the possibility of you being so overwhelmed, okay, where it responds back into your womb. And if all of that stuff responds back into your womb, then most definitely what's going to happen is that it's going to create a lot of problems for you, for your mind, body, and soul. A lot of problems. It creates a total imbalance. Nothing but an imbalance in your health, with your mind, your body, and your soul. You're constantly uncomfortable, constantly fearful, always having anxiety. It's a terrible situation. Another area I want to highlight on is loss of job. Now, when you lose your job, a lot of times you lose your job without really knowing that you're actually going to lose your job. Okay, it's not like you don't plan to lose your job. Okay, most people don't know that they're going to lose their job. So that normally comes as a shock, some sort of surprise. That's number one. The shock and the surprise of the announcement of you losing your job already creates turmoil within you, and it gives you a bad gut feeling. And when it gives you a bad gut feeling, we go back to the original point, which is the womb. That's the uterus, and that's where we receive and we respond to a lot of our issues as women. So you guys understand and see how all of these problems I'm highlighting, they all go back to, they all go back to the womb. They all revert back to the womb. It's all about the womb, okay? And it doesn't matter what type of problem you have. That's what I want to make it clear. As women, it's always going to have that feeling. It goes back to the womb. It goes back to that area of the womb, whether it's inside of the uterus and outside of the uterus. And that's the reason why we have to be very mindful of a lot of the issues that we face. And we also have to be mindful that it's imperative that we protect our energy at all times as women, because we are ultimately vulnerable. Every situation that we face so far that I've mentioned, all of those situations respond to us in the womb. Okay? We carry our problems in our womb. All right? And that is something that we have to learn basically not to do, because there's but so much you can carry. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of women become ill. A lot of women become ill because all of their problems, all of their issues, they're carrying it in their gut. They're carrying it in their womb. And that gives you nothing but problems in the womb. Fibroids, endometriosis, adenomyosis, ovarian cysts, ovarian cancer, you name it. Think about that. It happens. It could happen in other areas, but we're here talking about the womb, we're here talking about the uterus, and we're here talking about primarily women health issues that fall in the category of the womb. I want to go into radical loss of financial security. So let's say you're working your job, and all of a sudden, you end up, losing money. Okay, let's say, a better scenario is, let's say you invested in the stock market, and it's a low risk type of investment, and all of a sudden the stock market plunges and whatever you have saved is gone. Boom, vanish, like zero. Okay, and right then and there, that all of a sudden puts you into a scare. It puts you into a state of uncomfortability. It puts you in a state of uncertainty. It puts you in a state of fear. Okay, it puts you also in a state of confusion. And then it puts you in a pensive state where you're like, oh my God, what is my next move? What do I do? And you're looking for solutions. That's another state that you go through. But at the same time, all of these stages I'm talking about all respond back to the womb. If you're surprised, if you're scared, if you're confused, you're going through anxiety, all of these feelings are generated from the womb based on the situation that you are facing, whatever it is that you are confronting. All of those situations respond in the womb, which is the uterus area. That's why we always go through the gut feeling, as women. I want you guys to really pick this up and really be very clear and well versed in this matter, because as I go along, you guys are going to see how it's repetitive when it comes to stress and the womb, how it's all connected. It's connected, interconnected, it's interlooped, elongate, like whatever you want to, however you want to put it, it's always intertwined all the time. And we cannot go around it. We just cannot go around it. So the next factor is going to be major personal injury or illness. Now we're talking about women, so it could be gynecological illness or other causes of illness. You break a limb, you could have migraines. That's considered a sort of illness that you go through, constant migraines, arthritis, osteoporosis, whatever it is. Just notice when it comes to personal injury, when it comes to illness, no specific age, okay? I had arthritis, as a matter of fact, when I had the fibroids, because I suffered with a very low blood count. And the reason why I suffered with the very low blood count is because the fibroids themselves, they survive on sucking my blood. Basically, that's how they continue to thrive, is because they were just very happy with drinking my blood. And with that being said, I was always trying to replenish my blood because I never had enough. It was always too low, and I had too many fibroids. And imagine all of them inside and outside of my uterus, just literally sucking on my blood. So I had a very, 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 very low blood count. And with that being said, that was an illness that I dealt with. And because I had a very low blood count, It didn't allow me to function properly. My bones hurt all the time. So that was arthritis. I would normally go into a fog, brain fog every now and then. I didn't configure well, just like everybody else. I was tend to be kind of like slow. It took me a little bit to get things together, but that was because I was battling an illness for 21 years. Okay. So I'm explaining it to you guys like this for you to have a firm understanding of the whole nature of fibroids. And if you do have someone who is battling fibroids, endometriosis, or adenomyosis, they're all interrelated one way or the other. Pretty much the same thing, okay? But they do have their differences. Please be caring to this person, this individual, this woman. Please do not be frustrated. First and foremost, frustration only brings out more frustration. Okay, and that's something that honestly we all have to constantly remind ourselves. We constantly have to learn, unlearn it, and relearn it in many different ways, in many different scenarios, because it's presented differently in many different forms. And there are times we don't even recognize that's what's happening until it's way too late. So please be kind. Be kind. Just try to be nice. Okay. Next factor, future surgery for gynecological or other illness. So let's say you planning to have a surgery for any women's health related stuff. Definitely surgery by itself, whether it was women's health related or whatever surgery, just the thought of going to surgery creates some sort of stress, some sort of anxiety, definitely some sort of fear. It puts you in a pensive state. It really has you thinking about a lot, because somebody like me want to cover a lot of P's and Q's. Want to make sure everything is like scheduled properly, make sure that everything is covered, especially my bills being paid. That is something that I was very mindful and made sure that my bills were paid throughout my whole healing process when I went into my fibroid surgery. So the planning for me to make sure I was covered for 3 months of my whole entire healing process, I started planning way before, like a year or like 6 months before my surgery, because I wanted to make sure that I was clear. My bills were paid. I didn't have any issues, and I was good for a while. So all that future planning type thing, it does create some type of stress, because you creating a timeline for yourself. You have a timeline to make sure certain bills are paid, and you probably want to pay a lot beforehand. So like that, you have a lot of lag time when you do go back to work, to make sure that you're not off any bills, you're not late with anything. If you're concerned about your finances, if you're concerned about your credit, which I am, that is something that those are all the thoughts that you're going to put into play to make sure that things don't fall apart, basically. So that could be a stress factor, especially if you're doing it all on your own. Like, you don't have a partner, you don't have a financial person or somebody who contributes to your bills. Like, it's all you, and that's it, so that creates another extra stress. So all that, as women, those are things that we battle. Those are things that we think about. Those are things that respond to us in our gut. You know, when we're going through the thought processes, those are things that as we're trying to figure it out, it's all happening in the gut, because that's where we create. You know, that's where we create. That's where we just make things happen, basically. Okay. The next one is going to be beginning a new marriage. It could be beginning a new relationship, love relationship. Beginning a new marriage could be definitely stressful, especially when, even if you've been, I would say this, even if you've been in a long-term relationship, a long-term relationship is definitely not marriage, okay? Because marriage is different. You're legally binded to one another. That's one. Based on whatever your beliefs are. Some are doing it for religious purposes. Some do it for legal purposes. Some, it's both together, hand in hand, intertwined. But you need to learn about each other's personalities. You need to learn about the likes and dislikes. You need to learn about each other's tolerances. You know, our tolerances are not our likes and dislikes. You know, that's something that you need to be mindful of. You know, and there are a lot of things that come into play. You know, there are times when one person may want to be alone at times. And that is something that needs to be respected because they want their alone time. And there's a time where one person just wants to be in the other's company all the time. That's something that needs to be worked out amongst each other so that, like that, there's no friction and confusion, or one person does not feel like they're being ignored. You know how it all goes in marriages and stuff like that, love relationships. So you can imagine what the beginning of it may be like if basically those are not factors that were already established a while ago, you know. So that could definitely be a stress factor. Now, next one is foreclosure of mortgage or loan. Foreclosure is definitely a situation that is extremely stressful. You know, you're losing your home. You're in a situation where you obviously cannot pay your mortgage, and you're in default. That is very stressful. You know, although there are many different constructive ways to be able to save your home, but at the same time, if whoever is going through that current situation is not aware of those constructive ways, and they don't have an advisor to lead them and guide them in the right direction to make it possible for them to put together a constructive, you know, type of manner, type of deal, you know, for them to win over their home instead of losing it, that could become very stressful. You could just imagine a mother, you know, or a family with children, and they're about to lose their home, and they have no other way, you know. So that responds definitely to your gut as a woman, you know, probably losing sleep, losing a lot of time in terms of trying to be sane, you know, losing a lot of sanity time because you're trying to first make ends meet, maybe trying to pay the arrears of the mortgage, but then again, still end up losing your home. So that definitely creates a lot of issues in women's health. It becomes a major stress. It hurts the womb tremendously. Like finances hurts the womb at the utmost. You know, I can tell you, like, just me having a fallout with my bills created a lot of stress for me. My credit going into shambles at one point created a lot of stress for me. But now I'm so happy that I have a grip on it. And I'm at peace with myself, and I. Like, I'm totally at peace because my finances are in order, you know? So with that being said, I'm grateful that I have a handle on that area of my life, you know, because if I didn't, then I would be constantly worrying, constantly thinking about the bills, constantly thinking about maybe strategies to go about how to pay them off, and then think about the issues that I may have because I'm not paying my bills either on time or not paying my bills in like a routine fashion because maybe I don't have enough money, you know, all those things. And all of those things that I'm talking about, once again, for women, it's all about the womb. It responds in the womb. You worry, you're pensive, you're confused, you're going through anxiety, fears, everything all responds in the womb. It's very sensitive. The womb is very, very, very sensitive. The womb basically is the brain of the body. Your brain is not here. Okay, women, your brain is not here. All right. Tell your spouse, tell, your husbands, tell your friends, your boyfriends, let them know. The main brain for the woman is in the womb. The main brain, okay? This is a secondary brain. The main brain is in the womb. That's the main frame of our creation as women, okay? Another factor, stress factor, lawsuit lodged against you. Ugh, I had one of those. Very stressful, very stressful, very stressful. You have no idea. First and foremost, when you get some sort of lawsuit, first thing you got to think about, okay, if you don't already have a lawyer, you got to think about getting a lawyer. Excuse me. Once you do that, then now they have to, work on the case for you, file the case. And the anticipation before you actually go to court, those particular things, that's stressful, very stressful. And once again, all that responds in the womb continuously. You guys, I hope you guys are getting used to the patterns because it's not going to change. It's just going to continue on going back. It's a revolving door back to the womb. Back to the womb. It's all about the womb, the power of the womb. Get it? Please understand it, women and men. I have 1% men watching me. So yes, I will include you as well. But the 99% women watching me, please understand it's all about the womb. Respect your womb. Love your womb. Talk to your womb. Your womb is everything. You got to preserve your womb. Please, please. This is the center of your creation, the center of your creation. This is where you give life. This is where the rebirth goes into process in the womb. Your womb is so very important. All right. Next one is marriage reconciliation. So you're going through havoc in your marriage, confusion, misunderstandings, however, and then you guys come to a point where you're trying to mend things. You're trying to make things work out. You're trying to see how you could make things better for you. A lot of times you may go through therapy. You go to therapy, right? Because you want that firm understanding amongst each other. You want to make sure that you're able to come to a common ground. So definitely marriage reconciliation could be stressful on both of you or one of you, if you're really emotional, you're definitely an emotional type of being, and If you're empathic, for sure, marriage reconciliation will be some sort of stress type of, factor for you, because, you just don't know what to expect. You may know that you want to go through this and go through the whole process. You go to therapy on your part, but you don't know what the other party is thinking. You're not always 100% clear as to what the other party 100% wants to do. Do they really want exactly what you want? Or do they want it at 50%? Do they want it at 75%? Or do they want it at 10%? You don't really know that. So that definitely creates some sort of stress, and that also responds to the womb for the woman. Another factor, change in health of a family member. That for me is something that I suffer with. I remember when I was taking care of my uncle with my mom. My uncle was, I say was because he passed away. So my uncle basically was a 9/11 survivor, long story short. And he suffered from the aftermaths of 9/11. And with that being said, he had dementia, okay? My mom and I took care of him. And basically, it was a long journey to watch him go through the whole process of his illness. That created stress on me, making sure that he had proper food to eat, making sure that he was actually eating, because there are times he wouldn't remember that he needed to eat. That was stressful on me. The whole process of what I went through being a caretaker for him was very stressful on me. Those particular things responded to my womb, and there are times where you can see that the person is in pain, and there's nothing that you can do. Watching him, have his strokes, and watching him go through his seizures, that was stressful for me. So just thinking about it brings back memories. It's been over like 10 years since he passed, but it's still touching for me. So definitely creates stress. So I wanted to share that. Another area we're going to highlight on is major trouble with boss or your coworker at work. I used to have a situation like this where basically the responsibilities at work were a bit much, and they gave me a lot more because they realized I knew what I was doing, and they realized that I knew the work. And once they realize that you know the work, but you know it a little bit more than your actual boss, then they pretty much pile everything on you. Pretty much, okay? And that was a major situation for me that I had with my boss at work. And I also had that situation with my coworkers, because some of my coworkers were totally envious of me because they thought that I was being favored because I was getting so much more work. Like, what in the world? Why would you think I'm being favored? I'm getting more and more work. But then at the same time, my coworkers had some sort of like, they thought that I was like the boss's pet or something. That's why I was getting more work. Meanwhile, I'm like, no, I'm overly stressed because I have more work, and it's like my work would never finish, and I'm always constantly going through stuff. And my boss is on me with deadlines as to, I need this, I need that, get this done, get that done. And I ended up doing not only my work, but his or her work, which did not make much sense, which is totally unfair. And one of the reasons why I don't work there anymore. So, another stress factor that we want to highlight is increased responsibilities on job or home. Yeah, we just talked about that as well. Yeah, to pile it on, pile it on, pile it on, and they think they're good. Meanwhile, it's like, and then what I don't like about what they do when they increase responsibilities is that they don't increase pay. If you're going to increase responsibilities, which means that I'm going to be doing more than what is supposedly in the job description, then the job description needs to be altered, as well as the salary, the pay. Then it needs to be altered. If you're going to alter the work that I'm supposed to be doing, you're adding more to what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's like, why do bosses do stuff like that? I don't know. But anyway, that creates a stress, especially on women. Responds back to the womb. The worry, confusion, anxiety, fear, all in the womb. You carry it. You go home with it. You bring it to your family. The frustration, people in your household feel it. You pick it back up in the womb. You go back to work. You pick up more, bring it back home. Nothing but stress after stress after stress, if you understand what I'm saying. That DNA center in that womb picks up everything that we go through as women, okay? Learning you're pregnant. Learning you're pregnant. Well, that could be very stressful in many different ways, especially if you're very young, you're not on your own yet, and all of a sudden you learn that you're pregnant. We all know what that could be like, okay? So that's definitely a stress on you, your family, creates confusion. You're thinking about how you're going to make ends meet, thinking about what's your next move. If you're not working, you got to think about the possibility of working, all those things. So that's a stressor within itself. If you're pregnant and with a guy who's basically not doing anything, they're not working, they're not contributing, that's another stress factor as well. All responds in the DNA for women. In the DNA. All responds in the womb, which is your DNA for women. Okay? Major problem. So, difficulties with sexual abilities. Some could be bouncing off the chandelier without a problem. Some don't. If you understand me, to make it clear and cut. Okay? So, depending on who you are and how you feel about yourself, that could be an issue. That could create issues between you and your lover, significant other, husband, whatever, however, that could be a situation. And that could be a stress factor for you. And as a woman, you are carrying those feelings, you're carrying those uncomfortabilities or insecurities because you're having difficulties with your sexual abilities, right? You carry all that in the womb, So that's a big one. And unfortunately, it creates a lot of chaos. It could create a lot of problems. It could be a contributor to women's health and create situations in the uterus, in the womb for women, which could then translate into conditions like fibroids, adenomyosis, endometriosis, ovarian cysts, ovarian cancer, all that stuff. So you get the drift? Now, we're going to go into the next factor, gaining a new family member. That could be very stressful. I remember I was about 16 years old, and an aunt of mine got married to somebody, basically, till this day, let's put it like this, ended up being like a personified demon of the family. Okay, let's leave it like that. Create a lot of confusion, a lot of havoc, a lot of problems within the family. It just was not a good marriage at all, and that created a lot of stress for me. I didn't like him, didn't like seeing him, didn't like hearing him. I was disgusted. It was just terrible. So all that, I carried it in my womb. Okay, all of that, it's just irritating. I'm just thinking about that whole thing. It is what it is. You get the drift, okay? So change to a different job. Leaving one job where you know everything, where you're comfortable, you're used to everything, you're used to the people, they know you, you know where you sit, you're comfortable at your desk. If you have a desk job, you already know the flow, the workflow and stuff, and then you leave, and sometimes it's not you leave because you gotta leave. Sometimes it could be a promotion into another position, but at the same company. But that could be stressful also. So it could be change to a different job. It could be a promotion as well, because it's a new beginning. It's a new start. So all that is like you have to reprogram yourself. And unfortunately, when you go through changes like that, it's always a reprogramming, and it's a reprogramming that happens in the womb as well for women. It's all in the womb, okay? Everything is a reprogramming. Oh my God, I'm so happy that this word came to me, because it's all reprogramming. We're all programmed with whatever it is that we do. It's a program. Notice that. It's definitely a program. And then when you go through changes, you go through reprogramming. Like right now, a lot of us have been accustomed to going outside to work. Those who work for a company are going outside to work, and then, or, going outside to school, and all of a sudden the pandemic hit. Boom. Whatever we have been used to for so long has been totally wiped away from us. All of a sudden we're on lockdown, we're home. We started working from home. Even the companies didn't even know how to make it happen for us to work from home. That's another reprogramming. So it was stressful for them. It's stressful for us as employees, so on and so forth. You could understand how that went and still going because we're still in the pandemic. All right. Definitely can be stressful. It probably was stressful. I know it started to be stressful for me, but then you know what? I'm good with it. And I like working from home. I actually love working from home. But at the same time, the stress point for me right now, I don't know about going back to work the old-fashioned way and being in the office with everybody. Exactly how I feel. Another stress factor, increase in number of marital arguments. Okay, increase in number of marital arguments. So therefore, you're having all of these misunderstandings. You're having all these arguments in your marriage. You're not understanding each other. It's going back and forth. It's like a ping pong type of match. And it's every day. That creates stress. It creates uncomfortability. It puts you in a position where you probably don't even want to allow yourself to meet the other person, where you're dodging each other, in the household. Where if you guys work different schedules, separate schedules, you're probably getting up before time, getting ready so that the other one does not see you either early in the morning or late at night when you're coming in. You're coming in when they're sleeping, you're leaving when they're sleeping, type of thing. So those are the type of things that creates a lot of stress. And for women, it gives issues in the womb. It responds to the womb. It goes back to the womb center, which is your creation center, which is where you give life and constantly creating all the time. Getting a new loan or mortgage that's probably more than $100,000. Yeah, the more zeros you have behind there, and debt does create stress no matter what. Okay, so we don't even have to elaborate about that, but just think about it. All right, more debt that creates multiple zeros at the end definitely creates stress, because now you're thinking about, how am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to be consistent? Do I need a second job? What do I need to do? So on and so forth. So all that comes into play. If you have an older son or daughter and they leave the home, that definitely could create some sort of stress for you. Being accustomed to seeing them at home definitely creates some, and being accustomed to seeing them at home and not seeing them anymore, or seeing them less, just knowing that they're there and all of a sudden they're not there the way you would expect them to be, because that's what you're used to, definitely could be stressful, and it creates change and something new to get used to. So you could see how that could be bothersome, worrisome for a mother. And all that goes back to the womb, the creation center, inside and outside the uterus. Major disagreement with the in-laws or the friends. Yeah, you guys don't get along because you don't agree with certain things, and it's not like you don't like each other. It's just like this is a disagreement. You're not coming to a common ground. That could be a stressor. Sometimes it's funny how there has to be a limit that you go through. Like for me, I know there's a certain limit. Like we may not agree on certain things, but it's okay. But not at the same time, it depends like how far we're going to go with it, because just because we don't agree on something, that doesn't mean that we're going to allow one another to disrespect one another. That shouldn't be a factor. No disrespect whatsoever. And for me, once it gets to the point where there's a level of disrespect, then that's when I have to make the choice to cut out toxicity. I don't do toxic people. Like I don't continue on connection with toxic people. I do not want to be part of that at all. Like it's not good for me. Okay, and that's an issue that I've had. Having toxic people around me has created a lot of issues for me, where it has contributed to my fibroids and my suffering of 21 years. So with that being said, if I have to remove myself from the environment and protect my energy, or cut out people from my environment so that I could continue to protect my energy, that is what I will do, because my health is very important to me. My health is my wealth. And if that's what needs to be done, that is what I shall do, so that I could continue to be healthy. And that's the bottom line. Another factor I want to highlight on is recognition for outstanding achievements. Now, recognition for outstanding achievements is very beautiful. But the thing about it is this. There are times you go, like for me, I've gone through situations where I know I'm going to a gala, a dinner, for the possibility of receiving an achievement. Like I don't know if I'm gonna win, but I go because I'm nominated and I win. Now, before you go, first of all, there's a lot of stress that's around that, because you're coordinating your outfit in terms of what you're going to wear, because you can't just show up over there with whatever. You got to look representable. That's number one. Thinking about your hair, coordination, your presentation, your appearance. That's number one for women. So that could be a stressor. Now, for me, my type of functions. They've always been away, out of state. I always had to either drive or take the train, plane, however. So the transportation, that's another way of strategizing and knowing how am I going to get there. And then when I get there, where am I going to stay? Hotel, all that. It's a lot of planning. But the good thing for me is that it always worked out, and twice for me, I've won, which I'm very grateful and happy that it all turned out to be in my favor. But let's say it didn't, you have to be with the fact that you may go through all of that and you don't always have to be a winner. You know what I mean? But the fact that you're nominated alone, for me personally, makes me a winner. And I'm so happy to just know that someone actually thought of me in that manner and really put enough importance for them to actually nominate me. And that's huge for me. That's so huge. So with that being said, you guys could understand where the stress comes from and the worry comes from and all that stuff. But just being nominated within itself is a big deal. So another factor we're going to get through, spouse begins or stops working. Now, if your spouse, your partner, starts a brand new job, that could be stressful also, because then again, you got to know whether they're going to like it, how they're going to be, are they accustomed to the job, the distance between work and home, are they comfortable with the travel, is it to their advantage, are they comfortable with the people they're working with, do they get along? There are a lot of things that come into play when you're starting a job. And then if you stop working for whatever particular reason, it could be because of an illness, it could be because you lost your job, it could be because basically they had layoffs at your job, those surprising things happen. All those things create havoc, they create confusion, create instabilities, they all go to the gut. A lot of people stopped working right now because of COVID, the pandemic, so that created a lot of issues within itself. And there are some people who are not able to provide, so you could see how those particular factors that we're talking about, how that can create a lot of problems in women's health. A woman who's highly stressed, going through a lot of the factors that we mentioned, going through the pandemic alone, 2020, now we're in 2021, we're still in the pandemic, facing current events issues like Capitol Hill, domestic terrorism. That's stressful. If you're an emotional being, there's no way in the world that it's not going to impact you. And if you're a woman, it impacts you in your womb. That's just how it is. So that's how it is. And you have to always be on your toes so that you can protect your energy at all times. Watching the news, for instance, creates a negative impact on you. It leaves a negative impact if you're constantly watching negative things all the time. It responds into your womb. There was a time in my life that I could not even watch the news because I was so sensitive. I was at a point where I was so weak. I could not, like back before my surgery, even when I was in my healing process, I could not watch the news. I could not, I was highly emotional. I just could not deal with that. And I needed time to heal. Now, yeah, I can watch the news. I have my limitations as to how much I consume of the news, but I could watch the news. Beginning or ending education, starting a new program in school, going into a new college program, starting a new course, that creates stress. That could put you in a situation where you're like, oh my God, I'm a little uncomfortable and everything. Creates anxiety for sure, There are some people who just get overly nervous because they're starting something new. So you can understand how that responds to the womb. Now you're done with school, you're ending your education, and now you're thinking about what's your next step. That could be stressful as well. And for a woman, that goes back to the womb as well. Wondering whether you're going to be in the field that you study, number one, if you're going to work in that field, because everybody does not always work in the field that they study. And then again, who you're going to work for, if you're going to work from home, if you're going to work for yourself, if you're going to start your own business, if you're going to be a consultant, if you're going to be under 1099, if you're going to fill out a W-2, stuff like that. It's a lot of things that goes into the fact that you end school, you end your education, and then, okay, what's next? Are you going to start your own firm, depending on what you study, start your own practice? You don't know. So there are a lot of things that come into play, and that for a woman, like I said, it goes back to the womb. All of these things that we talked about, all of these strategies, all of these thoughts comes from that womb center. And undergo a change in living condition. So if you've always been living in a house and all of a sudden you're in a itty bitty apartment, 1-bedroom apartment, or a studio, and you're used to having 3 floors and stuff, and you're confined into one space, that could be stressful. It could pretty much be the other way around. You're in a confined space and all of a sudden you have a whole lot of space and you don't even know what to do with it. And because you're so used to being in a confined space, you find yourself just utilizing one itty bitty area in your house. That has happened to people because they just don't know how to deal. It's too much space, and they get anxiety based on the fact that they have all this space and it's just them by themselves. That creates stress for people. And then it creates loneliness for people because they're like, oh my God, I have all this space and it's just me by myself. And a lot of people become scared and they're not able to function properly. All that responds in the womb. All that responds in the womb. All that hits the womb constantly. If you don't have control on it, it could hit the womb at a point where it could destroy the womb. And that's why women, a lot of times, they end up getting hysterectomies. Why? Because when they go to the doctor, the first thing they're going to tell you, because that's what they told me at the age of 19 years old, okay, you have fibroids, no problem, leave them alone. But then again, they're still giving you issues all these years. Okay, just get a hysterectomy and that solves all your problems. No, I don't think so. Okay. Getting a hysterectomy is the removal of the uterus. Why would you want to remove your womb center? Why would you want to take it upon yourself to actually remove the most precious area of your body, which is your womb, which is the womb? That's your creation center. That's where you give life. Why? I know for me, that was not a factor at all. That was not a factor at all. I was not going to, because first of all, when you get to the point where you make that decision based on whatever doctor tells you, like that's the decision to go through, you take out your uterus, you go into instant menopause. And there are times you go to instant menopause way too early in your life. And it creates a lot of other issues in your body. So you already have a fibroid situation or endometriosis situation, adenomyosis by all means. And all of a sudden, oh, just take out the womb and your problems are over. No, you just started having issues before your body goes through your healing process and gets used to the fact that it's missing an organ, like it's missing some type of mechanism, and it has to learn now how to function without the womb, which is your creation, your life area, where you have all your DNA and everything. Like your body has to get accustomed to functioning without that part. It's not an easy thing that women go through, those who go through hysterectomies. It's not easy at all. Going through early menopause is not a walk around the park. It's not a fun thing at all. So I sympathize with all the women who have gone through that process. And for those who choose not to go through that process, I understand how you feel, because I was one of those as well. But yeah, at the same time, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's very difficult. Another thing that I want to highlight on is revise or alter your personal habits. Revise or alter your personal habits. Okay, you have your personal issues that you go through, a lot of personal things that you endure in your life. And if you're the type of person that goes through a lot of process and analysis, like you're always revising everything that you go through in your life, that could be very stressful. And that responds to your womb center, that responds to, the area in the uterus, and it could create pain in that area if you're constantly going through process of analysis of everything that you say, everything that you do, strategizing on so many different things, on a daily basis. It's a lot. It's a lot that you're going to go through, Just hold on one second, guys. All right. I had to stop the video for a bit because I needed to charge my phone. All right. Back to you guys. So we're back here with the other factor, which is change in work hours. If you're used to working days, let's say 9 to 5, and all of a sudden your schedule is midnight to 8, definitely that's going to be stressful. Okay. Because now you're going to have to get accustomed to basically being up when everybody's sleeping. I've been there, done that. I've worked all around the clock, being in the emergency room. Trust me, I know what it's like, and I had shift change every now and then and stuff. When I was working at the airport as a passenger service agent, I was waking up very early in the morning when it was dark. That's an impact on your body as well. It's totally dark. You're going to work, because I was starting at 5 a.m. in the morning and I was done by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But still, that creates stress, that creates a lot of issues, and it gives you problems. If you don't have a car, you're going the regular route, which is transportation, public transportation, for you to be out there at a time when most people are home, it does something to you for sure. It does something for you for sure, and it's stressful. It could be stressful. Change of residency, moving from one place to another definitely creates stress. You're in a nice calm area where you hardly hear noise, and then you go and you live at a commercial place where constant noise, it's overpopulated. You hear people in their cars playing loud music, somebody, yelling and all that stuff. Or you go from a household and then you go live in a building, a community like setting. That can be stressful, and it responds to the womb as well for women. Change your school or major in school. Change in general, whether it's in school or your major in school, whatever. Change in general is stressful no matter what. So I want you guys to be mindful of that. Or whenever you're dealing with change, whenever you're going from one phase to another. Whenever you're breaking into a routine and trying to adapt to something new, it could be stressful. It could be stressful in many different ways. And it all responds to the womb for women. Alterations in your recreational activities. If you're used to having time to read or write, if you're used to a walking on a regular basis and then you can't anymore, if you're used to running and you can't anymore, that could be stressful for you, based on whatever it is that you're going through in your life. You used to exercising all the time and all of a sudden you can't exercise anymore. That's definitely an adjustment, change of life. You're probably not going to be feeling good about yourself after a while if you're like an exercise type. And all of a sudden you're like, what in the world am I looking like? It creates a negative impact. So all that for women responds to the womb. Change in church or club activities, yeah. From one church to another, dealing with different people, getting used to new people, all that. The club activities, same thing. Change in social activities, for sure, definitely could be stressful, especially if you have to make those changes based on not something personal, not because you want to, because you have to. That's definitely a problem. Change in sleeping habits. So let's say you normally would sleep 6 to 8 hours and all of a sudden you're sleeping for 2.5, 3 hours, 4 hours. Definitely you're not getting enough sleep. You're going to be irritated. The people around you are going to be irritated. You're going to be short. You're going to have shortcomings. And then it's all going to crumble. All of that responds into the womb because you're probably not going to feel good about yourself after a while. People are going to be like, what in the world is wrong with you? Why is she acting like this? Blah, blah, blah. All of that goes back to the womb center and it creates problems. A lot of problems. A lot of problems in women's health. Change in number of family get-togethers. So let's say that has happened to me where the number, let's say, for example, it was like 20 people and then it comes down to 10. It's like, oh, where are the other people? Well, they don't come anymore or whatever the situation is, that adjustment, that change does something to you, and if you're not emotionally stable, it could definitely break you down, and it does create issues in the womb. Like I said, for everything with women, it goes back to the womb. Change in diet or eating habits or change. Okay, so basically, if let's take it like this. If you're used to eating healthy and all of a sudden you start to eat junk food, consuming a lot of processed foods, consuming a lot of sugar, high carbohydrate foods, right? But before you were eating like legumes and veggies and, very less carbohydrates, more home cooked foods, that change and adjustment definitely could put your body into shock, So whether it's the other way around from junk food to healthy food or healthy food to junk food, your body goes through some sort of shock. And it's like, what are you doing to me? I don't like this food. I'm not used to that. It's going to react. And eventually your body's going to tell you, and your womb center is going to be like, can you treat me better? It happens. I've been there. I know. Trust me. So, when you go on vacation, okay, that's a good one. I've gone through stress points where the anticipation of going on vacation, like the countdown to be able to go on vacation, that was like huge for me. And some days it's like, oh my God, when is the day for me going to come for me to go on vacation? And then the planning around like what I'm going to bring, what I'm putting in my suitcase. That could be a little stressful. Planning the days and coordination of outfits and all that stuff, right? But then again, when I am on vacation, I'm like, okay, I'm on vacation, all happy, relaxed and stuff. And then as the days are approaching, let's say 2 days before my return date, that's another stress. It's like, oh my God,